Amara didn't go straight back to her room. She told herself she would. That was the plan. Walk back, shut the door, sit down, and pretend the last hour hadn't happened the way it had. Pretend it had been just another strange interaction she could file away with everything else she didn't fully understand yet. But her steps slowed before she reached the building, then stopped. The city moved around her like nothing had changed. Cars passed. Voices carried from somewhere down the street. A group of students laughed as they crossed the corner ahead, their energy light, unbothered, completely separate from the quiet tension that still lingered beneath her skin. Amara exhaled slowly and turned, her gaze drifting back in the direction she had just come from, toward the water, toward him. She shook her head lightly, like that alone might reset something. It didn't. By the time she made it back to her room, the space felt smaller than it had before. Not physically, just contained. Too contained. She dropped her bag on the chair without thinking and crossed to the window, pushing it open just enough to let the evening air in. The breeze was light, barely there, but it was enough to break the stillness that had settled too heavily in the room. For a while, she just stood there, looking out, not really seeing anything. Her mind didn't go back to the alley, or the first night, or even the moments that had felt dangerous. It went back to him, the way he had said things, the way he hadn't, the way he stood like everything around him adjusted instead of the other way around. Amara pressed her lips together slightly, exhaling through her nose as she leaned her weight against the edge of the desk. That's not normal, she muttered. No part of this was. But that wasn't what was bothering her. She replayed it again. The walk, the silence, the way it hadn't felt empty. That was the part that didn't sit right. Because silence like that, with someone you barely knew, should have been awkward. Forced. Something you noticed because it didn't fit. It hadn't been. It had felt. She frowned slightly, pushing the thought away before it could fully form. No. She wasn't doing that. Amara turned away from the window and paced once across the room, then back again, her movements sharper now, more restless. You don't even know him, she said under her breath. That should have been enough. It should have grounded everything back into something logical. He was part of something she didn't understand. Something dangerous. Something that had already made it clear she wasn't supposed to be involved. That should have been the only thing she focused on. But it wasn't. Her steps slowed again as she stopped near the bed, her gaze drifting to nothing in particular as the moment replayed without her trying to pull it back. The way he looked at her. Not like he was trying to figure her out. Like he already had. That didn't make sense. And it definitely shouldn't have. She exhaled sharply and dragged a hand through her hair. Okay. Enough. Amara sat down on the edge of the bed, leaning forward with her elbows on her knees, her hands loosely clasped as she stared at the floor. She needed to separate it, the situation, from him, because right now they felt too connected, too blurred. You're not outside of this anymore. His voice echoed in her head. Clear, steady, uncomplicated. Amara swallowed, her jaw tightening slightly as she leaned back, staring up at the ceiling now. Yeah, she said quietly. I got that. Problem was, that wasn't the part that stayed with her. It was everything else. The way he didn't rush. Didn't explain more than he had to. Didn't try to convince her of anything. He just expected her to understand. Or catch up. Or keep moving. Amara let out a slow breath, her gaze unfocusing as the tension in her chest shifted into something quieter. Less sharp. More present. That was new. She sat with it for a moment longer, not trying to push it away this time, not trying to label it or make it make sense. Just letting it exist. Then, her phone buzzed. The sound cut through the silence sharply enough to pull her out of it immediately. Amara blinked, her attention snapping back as she reached for it, glancing at the screen without thinking. Unknown number. Her brow furrowed slightly. For a second, she considered ignoring it. Then she answered. Hello. Silence. Not the kind that felt like a bad connection. The kind that felt deliberate. Amara's grip tightened slightly around the phone. Hello, she repeated. Still nothing. Then, a breath. Soft. Barely there. Her chest tightened, her body going still as her attention sharpened instantly. Who is this? The line went dead. Amara lowered the phone slowly, her gaze fixed on the screen as it dimmed in her hand. The room felt different again. Not smaller. Not contained. Watched. And this time, It had nothing to do with him. Amara didn't sleep enough to call it rest. By the time morning came, she had stopped pretending it was just a rough night. The silence on the phone hadn't left her. Neither had him. Campus felt louder than usual. Too bright. Too normal. Students moved between buildings, conversations overlapping. Energy high in that way it always was during the first part of the day. It should have been grounding. It wasn't. By the time Amara reached the cafe, Raylan was already there, and she looked like she'd been waiting longer than she planned to. Her posture was tight, not relaxed, not casual. Waiting. "There you are," Raylan said, sliding a drink across the table, but there was no warmth behind it this time. Amara sat slowly, picking up on it immediately. "Good morning to you too." Raylan didn't smile. "Don't do that." Amara paused. "Do what?" "That thing where you act normal when you're clearly not." Amara leaned back slightly, exhaling under her breath. "I'm fine, Ray. Stop lying." That hit harder than anything else. Not loud, not dramatic, just direct. Amara's jaw tightened slightly as she looked down at her cup. "I'm not lying." Raylan let out a sharp breath, leaning forward now. "Then explain it." No, Raylan cut in. "You don't get to just anything right now. You've been acting weird for weeks. You disappear, you come back different, you keep looking over your shoulder like something's about to happen, and then you sit here and tell me it's nothing." Amara didn't respond. Because she couldn't. Not without saying everything. "Amara," Raylan said, quieter now, but more serious than before, "I'm not stupid, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend I don't see it." The words sat there. Heavy. Real. Amara looked up slowly, meeting her gaze. And for a second, she hesitated. Then she exhaled. "Okay." Raylan blinked, caught off guard. "Okay. You want the truth?" Amara said, her voice steady now, even if her pulse wasn't. "You're not going to like it. Try me." Amara glanced around the cafe quickly. Not panicked, just aware. Then she leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. "I saw something," she said. Raylan frowned. "Saw what?" Amara held her gaze. "Something I wasn't supposed to." That landed differently. Raylan leaned in a little closer. "Like what, Amara?" Amara hesitated for half a second. Then said it. "People talking about territory," she said. "Not like normal. Like it meant something. Like it mattered." Raylan's expression didn't change yet. So Amara kept going. "And then something happened," she continued. "I don't even know how to explain it, but it wasn't normal. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't anything I've seen before." Raylan's brows pulled together now. "Okay. And after that," Amara said, her voice tightening slightly, "he showed up." "He," Raylan repeated. Amara didn't look away. "The guy you saw." Raylan leaned back slowly, processing. "The intense one." "Yes." Silence stretched between them. Not disbelief. "Not yet. Just trying to catch up." "And you're telling me," Raylan said slowly, "this man has just been, what? Following you around since then?" "Not following," Amara said. "Watching." "That's worse." "I know." Raylan dragged a hand over her face, exhaling sharply. "Okay, wait, she said, sitting forward again. "You're telling me you saw something weird, and now some guy is watching you, and you're just walking around like that's fine." "I didn't say it was fine." "Then why didn't you tell me?" There it was. Amara's expression shifted. That one hit. "Because it sounds insane," she said quietly. "I don't care," Raylan snapped. "Insane or not, you don't just deal with this alone." Amara swallowed, looking down for a second before meeting her eyes again. "I didn't know what it was yet," she said. "And I still don't fully know. But you know it's something." "Yes. And you still didn't tell me." Amara didn't answer. "Because there wasn't a good one." Raylan leaned back again, shaking her head. "Unbelievable." "Ray." "No," she said, holding up a hand. "You don't get to Ray me right now. Do you have any idea how bad this could be?" "I do." "No. You don't," Raylan shot back. "Because if you did, you wouldn't be sitting here acting like you've got it handled." Amara's eyes narrowed slightly. "I'm not acting like that." "You are." "I'm trying to understand it." "And what happens while you're trying to understand it?" Raylan said. "What happens if whoever this is decides to stop watching and actually do something?" Amara froze. Just for a second. Because that had already started to feel real. Before she could answer, A voice cut in. You're both asking the wrong questions. They turned at the same time. Professor Men Ji-hoon stood a few feet from their table, coffee in hand, expression calm, but focused in a way Amara hadn't seen before. Not casual. Not academic. Observing. Professor, Raylan said, confused. How long have you been standing there? Long enough, he replied. Amara's pulse spiked. Not fear. Something sharper. He stepped closer, his gaze settling on her. Not accusing, not surprised. Just aware. If what you're saying is accurate, he continued evenly, then the question isn't what you saw. He paused. Just slightly. It's why you were allowed to walk away from it. Silence. Raylan looked between them. Amara didn't move. 'Cause for the first time, someone else was saying it out loud. And it sounded worse coming from him. The silence after his words didn't break right away. It stretched tight, heavy, impossible to ignore. Amara didn't move. Neither did Raylan. Professor Men Ji-hoon stood there like he hadn't just dropped something into the middle of their conversation that didn't belong in a normal world. Calm, composed, watching. Raylan was the first to react. Okay, no, she said, pushing back slightly from the table. What does that mean? Allowed to walk away? That's not a normal sentence. Men Ji-hoon didn't look at her right away. His attention stayed on Amara. Measured. Intentional. You've been noticing things, he said. Not a question. Amara swallowed slightly. Yeah, she said. He nodded once, like that confirmed something he already knew. I thought so. Raylan looked between them, clearly losing patience now. Okay, I'm not following this at all, she said. Why are you talking like this is normal for you? That pulled his attention to her. Not dismissive. Just careful. It's not normal, he said. But it's not unfamiliar either. That didn't help. At all. Raylan blinked. That is somehow worse. Amara leaned forward slightly, her pulse picking up again. Not from fear this time. From recognition. You know what I'm talking about, she said. He held her gaze. Yes. That answer landed heavier than anything else. Raylan sat back, staring at both of them. Okay, hold on, she said, dragging a hand through her hair. So you've been dealing with this too? Like whatever this is. Men Ji-hoon exhaled quietly, setting his coffee down on the table. Not exactly the same way, he said. But close enough. Amara's attention sharpened immediately. What does that mean? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled out the chair beside them and sat down. Uninvited, but not unwelcome either. Not anymore. Up close, his energy felt different. Still calm. Still grounded. But there was something beneath it now. Something that aligned too closely with everything she'd been experiencing. You said you saw something, he said. People moving like there were rules attached to it. Amara nodded slowly. And someone has been watching you since. Yes. He leaned back slightly in his chair, his gaze steady. Then you're already further into it than most people ever get. Raylan let out a short, disbelieving laugh. That is not reassuring. It's not meant to be, he said evenly. Amara leaned in a little more. What is it? She asked. This time he didn't deflect. But he didn't rush it either. There are groups, he said carefully. Structures. Territories that exist alongside everything you think is normal. Amara's chest tightened slightly. Like what? He shook his head once. You're not at the point where names matter yet. That answer should have frustrated her. Instead, it made sense. They don't operate the way you expect, he continued. They don't explain themselves. They don't announce anything. If you're outside of it, you never see it. Amara's voice lowered. And if you're not outside of it anymore. His gaze didn't waver. Then they see you. Silence. Raylan looked between them again. Her expression caught somewhere between disbelief and anger. So what? She's just what? On a list now, she said. Watched by people we don't understand for reasons no one wants to explain. Yes, he said simply. That snapped something in Raylan. Okay, absolutely not, she said, sitting forward. No, that's not how this works. If someone is watching my friend, I need to know who, why, and how we stop it. Men Ji-hoon didn't react to her tone, but he didn't dismiss it either. You don't stop it, he said. You survive it. Raylan stared at him. I don't like that answer. I know. Amara's voice cut in, quieter now, but sharper. You said it's not exactly the same for you, she said. What does that mean? This time. He hesitated. Not avoidance. Not uncertainty. Something else. Then he spoke. It means, he said, I wasn't the one who saw it first. Amara's breath caught slightly. His gaze held hers. Steady. Knowing. It was someone close to me, he continued. Someone who started noticing the same things you are now. Pieces started to move. Not fully, but enough. And you believe them? Amara asked. A faint shift crossed his expression. Not quite a smile, but something close. I didn't have a choice, he said. Raylan crossed her arms. And now you're just okay with this? No, he said. Then, after a beat, I understand it. Amara leaned back slowly, her mind racing now, trying to catch up to something that felt just out of reach. You've been watching me too, she said. He didn't deny it. I noticed the shift, he said. The way you started paying attention differently. The way you stopped dismissing things most people would. Amara's chest tightened. Because of him. Another pause. Men Ji-hoon's gaze didn't move. Yes. That landed. Hard. Raylan looked between them again, quieter now, but no less intense. So this guy, she said, the one she's been seeing, he's part of this. Yes. And he's just allowed to, what? Be around her? Men Ji-hoon's expression didn't change. If he's still showing up, he said, then he's not the one you should be worried about. That chilled the air more than anything else he'd said so far. Amara's voice dropped. Then who is? He held her gaze. And for the first time, there was weight behind it. The ones who don't announce themselves, he said. Silence settled over the table again. This time, no one tried to break it.
The pack house was quieter than usual. Not empty. Not relaxed either. Controlled. Changho felt the shift the moment he stepped inside. It wasn't something most people would notice, nothing obvious in movement or sound. The structure was intact. Conversations stayed low. Positions were held. But the energy underneath it had changed. Tighter. More alert. They knew. Not everything. But enough. He moved through the main floor without breaking stride, his presence acknowledged without hesitation. No one stopped him. No one questioned him. They didn't need to. Respect didn't require conversation. Jisoo was waiting. Of course she was. Positioned near the far end of the room, her posture composed, her attention already locked on him before he fully crossed the space. Han stood a few feet behind her, arms relaxed at his sides, but his focus was sharper than usual. Watching. Measuring. Changho didn't slow until he reached them. Report. No greeting. No delay. Jisoo answered immediately. They're moving closer. That was expected. Still. His attention sharpened. How close? Han stepped in this time. Closer than they've been before, he said. They're not testing boundaries anymore. They're mapping them. That wasn't a good sign. Mapping meant planning. Planning meant escalation. Changho's jaw tightened slightly, his gaze shifting past them for a brief moment before returning. And the human? Neither of them hesitated. That told him everything he needed to know. They're aware, Jisoo said. Not interested. Not curious. Aware. Changho went still. Not visibly. But enough. How? Han exhaled quietly, like he already knew the answer wouldn't matter. Does it matter? It did. But not in the way it used to. They don't have full access yet, Jisoo added. But they're watching. Tracking movement. Waiting. Waiting. That was the part that shifted everything. Changho's gaze hardened slightly. They don't wait without a reason. No, Jisoo agreed. They wait when they know something is worth taking. Silence settled between them. Not uncertainty. Understanding. Han stepped forward just slightly. Which means we don't have time for this to stay undefined. There it was. Not a challenge. Not a threat. A line. Changho met his gaze. I'm aware. Han didn't back down. Not fully. But he didn't push either. That makes two of us, he said. Jisoo shifted her attention between them, stepping in before the tension could stretch any further. They're not going to wait for us to decide how to handle this, she said. If they move first, we lose control of the situation. We haven't lost it yet, Changho replied. Not yet, she agreed. But we're close. That landed. Not because it was new. Because it was true. Changho turned slightly, his attention shifting toward the far end of the room before returning. Expand the perimeter, he said. Double coverage on entry points. No gaps. Han nodded once. Already in motion. Of course it was. Jisoo didn't move. Didn't step back. There's one more thing, she said. Changho's attention returned fully to her. The human isn't just being watched, she said carefully. She's being assessed. That word sat heavier than the rest. Changho's expression didn't change, but something beneath it sharpened instantly. For what? He asked. Jisoo held his gaze. You. Silence. The implication was clear. Too clear. Han's voice cut in lower now. They're not just looking at her, he said. They're looking at what she is to you. There it was. No more avoiding it. No more delaying it. Changho didn't respond right away. Not because he didn't have an answer. Because the answer changed everything. Jisoo stepped closer. Not confrontational. Just direct. You need to decide, she said. Not, eventually. Not, soon. Now. Because if you don't, she continued, they will. Changho held her gaze. Then shifted to Han. Then back again. The room felt smaller. Not physically. Structurally. He had kept this contained. Managed. Controlled. But that window was closing. They don't move without consequence, Changho said finally. No, Jisoo replied. They don't. Then they already know what they're risking. Han's expression darkened slightly. That doesn't mean they won't take it. Another silence. He could feel it now. Clear. Unavoidable. This wasn't just about territory anymore. It was about her. And that was the problem. Changho turned slightly, his decision not spoken yet, but forming. Keep eyes on her, he said. Jisoo didn't move. That's not a decision. Changho's gaze returned to her. Steady. Final. It is for now. That was the line. Not refusal. Not acceptance. Delay. And they both knew. That delay was running out. The door to his quarters shut behind him with more force than necessary. Changho didn't move right away. He stood there, shoulders tight, jaw set, letting the silence settle around him. It should have grounded him. It usually did. This time it didn't. Jisoo's words lingered. Han's tone. The tightening perimeter around something he had tried to keep controlled for too long. He had handled pressure before, far worse than this. He had made decisions that affected lives, territory, stability. So why did this feel like the one thing he couldn't contain? He exhaled slowly and stepped further into the room, loosening the tension in his shoulders with deliberate effort. Everything was exactly as it should be, clean, ordered, untouched. Controlled. The way he preferred it. The way he needed it. A low, familiar presence shifted beneath the surface of his thoughts, no longer distant, no longer willing to stay quiet. You're done pretending now. Changho's jaw tightened. Not tonight, Kazryn. A quiet, humorless sound moved through him, more felt than heard. You've said that every night since you saw her. Changho moved to the table, bracing his hands against the edge as if anchoring himself would make a difference. This isn't about you. Kazryn didn't hesitate. It's entirely about me. The pressure sharpened, pushing forward with more force than before. Changho closed his eyes for a moment, trying to steady his breathing. He shouldn't have. The memory came back instantly, clearer than he allowed himself to process before. The overlook. The way she stood her ground. The way she didn't look away when she should have. The way her attention stayed on him like she was trying to understand something she hadn't been told yet. His eyes opened again. Enough. Kazryn didn't back off. You felt it. No. You did. Changho straightened, tension tightening through his chest. That doesn't mean anything. Kazryn's response was immediate, sharp. You brought her into your space. That was strategy. You stayed. Silence followed, heavy and unyielding. Changho pushed away from the table, pacing once across the room before stopping again. His control was still there, but thinner now, stretched tighter than it should have been. This is irrelevant. Kazryn's presence surged forward, no longer restrained. She isn't. That landed harder than anything else. Changho felt it, an unfamiliar tightening in his chest that didn't belong to strategy or control. He forced it down the way he always did. This is not the priority. It is now. Changho shook his head once, sharper this time. No. The pack comes first. The pack is still standing, Kazryn replied. You are the one failing. That stopped him. Not the words. The certainty behind them. They're closing in on her, Kazryn continued, relentless. You know that. I know. And you're still trying to decide what she is to you. Changho's focus sharpened, irritation rising with it. I don't need to decide anything. Kazryn let out a low, dangerous sound. You already have. You just haven't said it out loud. That's not how this works. That's exactly how this works, Kazryn snapped. You think this is optional? Changho's jaw tightened, his patience wearing thin. She's human. The words came out like they should settle it, like they should end the conversation. Kazryn didn't even hesitate. End. Changho stilled. That's the problem, he said. No, Kazryn replied, colder now. That's your excuse. Changho turned slightly, his expression hardening. You think I'm going to bind myself to something that doesn't belong in this world? Kazryn pushed forward fully now, no distance left between them. She belongs to us. That's not your call to make. It already has been made. The room seemed to tighten around him, the air heavier, harder to move through. Changho's chest rose and fell slowly, but the control behind it was slipping. This is not happening. Kazryn didn't soften. You felt her. Changho's breath caught, just slightly. I didn't. Don't lie to me. The words cut through everything else. Changho went still. Because Kazryn wasn't wrong. He had felt it. He just hadn't allowed himself to name it. Say it, Kazryn pressed. Say you didn't feel it when you stood next to her. Changho didn't respond. Say it didn't change anything. The silence stretched, tightened. Then, something shifted. It started low, deep in his chest, the same pressure he had been ignoring finally breaking through. Not subtle this time. Not something he could push aside or reframe into something manageable. It hit all at once. Sharp. Immediate. Unavoidable. Changho's breath broke as the sensation surged through him, his hand coming up instinctively to press against his chest as if that would steady it. It didn't. The connection snapped into place with a force that knocked the breath out of him, like something had been waiting for him to stop resisting long enough to take hold. Kazryn didn't sound surprised. There it is. Changho's breathing slowed, but not because he controlled it. It adjusted on its own, pulled into something deeper, heavier. The feeling wasn't abstract anymore. It had direction. It pulled toward her. The realization settled in, not gradually, not gently, but with a clarity that left no room for denial. This wasn't tension. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't something he could choose to ignore or manage. It was recognition. Changho lowered his hand slowly, his gaze unfocused for a moment as the truth settled in. No. The word came out quieter now. Not firm. Not convincing. Because he could feel her. Not clearly enough to pinpoint exactly where she was, but enough to know she was there. Enough to know the connection between them was real, solid, and already rooted deeper than he wanted to admit. Kazryn stepped forward fully, no resistance left between them now. Mine. The word didn't echo. It didn't need to. It settled into him like something that had always been there, waiting to be acknowledged. Changho's jaw tightened, but the resistance behind it was already breaking apart. This changes everything. Kazryn didn't argue. It already has. Changho stood there for a moment longer, the last of the denial falling away under the weight of something he could no longer control. The bond wasn't forming. It had already formed. He had just refused to see it. Now he could feel it, clear, unrelenting, impossible to ignore. And somewhere beyond the walls of the pack house, beyond the control he had tried to maintain. She wasn't just being watched anymore. She was vulnerable.
Amara's POV. By the time Amara left campus, the conversation from earlier hadn't settled the way she thought it would. If anything, it made everything worse. Raylan hadn't let it go. Not really. Even when they changed the subject, even when they tried to act normal again, the tension stayed under the surface. It followed them through the rest of the day, lingering in the way Raylan kept watching her like she was waiting for something else to happen. Amara didn't blame her. She felt it too. The air outside had shifted. Not colder, just off. She adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder as she moved down the sidewalk, her attention sharper than it used to be. What used to feel like background noise now stood out in pieces. Movement at the edge of her vision, the timing of footsteps behind her, the way certain spaces felt quieter than they should. Professor Men Ji-hoon's words stayed with her. If you're not outside of it anymore, then they see you. Amara slowed slightly at the corner, her gaze lifting just enough to catch the reflection in the glass of a storefront. Someone was behind her. Not close. Not far either. She didn't turn. Not immediately. Instead, she took another step forward, then another, letting the reflection guide her instead of reacting too quickly. The figure adjusted. Subtle, but enough. Her pulse picked up. Not panic. Awareness. Don't overreact, she told herself. That's what he would do. That's what he expected her to do. She turned the corner. The street ahead was quieter than the one she left. Less crowded. Fewer people moving through it. Wrong choice. The realization came a second too late. Amara's steps slowed as the feeling hit her fully this time. Not just awareness, not just tension. Something closing in. She turned. No one directly behind her. But the space had changed. A car idled at the curb. Dark. Engine low. Her instincts screamed now. Move. She did. One step back. A hand caught her arm. Not rough. Not hesitant. Just fast. Amara twisted immediately, her other hand coming up to shove whoever grabbed her. But they were already too close. The movement was controlled, practiced. Her wrist was caught before she could fully pull away, her momentum redirected instead of stopped. Let go. A second figure stepped in. Closer. Blocking. This wasn't random. Amara's heart slammed hard against her chest as she tried to pull free again, but the grip tightened. Not enough to hurt, just enough to make resistance useless. Don't make this harder, a voice said quietly. That made it worse. She twisted again, sharper this time, trying to create space, trying to get her footing back. But the second she did, something pressed against her side. Cold. Solid. Not a weapon. Something else. Her body reacted instantly. Slowed. No. Amara's breath hitched as her strength dropped. Not gone, but dulled. Like something had cut through her momentum and left her just off balance enough to lose control. What did you? Easy, the voice said again. Her vision didn't blur. It narrowed. That was worse. She tried to move again, to pull back, to fight through whatever was affecting her. But her body wasn't responding the way it should. Her limbs felt heavier. Slower. Not weak. Just restrained. The door to the car opened. Amara's chest tightened as realization hit hard and fast. No. They moved her before she could brace. Not dragging. Not violent. Just efficient. Her back hit the seat, her hand catching the edge of the door as she tried to push herself back out. But the same cold pressure returned. Stronger this time. Her grip slipped. The door shut. Too loud. Too final. Amara sucked in a sharp breath, her pulse racing as she tried to force her body to respond, to move, to do anything. But whatever they used was still working through her system, keeping her just controlled enough to stop her from fighting back the way she needed to. Car moved. Fast. She turned her head toward the window, trying to track where they were going, trying to hold on to something. Anything, but the street blurred past too quickly. Her chest rose and fell harder now, her mind racing through everything at once. The cafe. The professor. Raylan. Him. Her hand curled against the seat as the realization hit her fully. This wasn't a warning. This was planned. And she had walked straight into it.
Changho's POV. Changho was still in his quarters when the shift hit him. One moment, the space was quiet, controlled, exactly as he had left it. The bond sat beneath the surface of his awareness, new, undeniable, but steady enough that he could contain it while he thought through what came next. The next moment, that control snapped. A sharp pull tore through his chest without warning, sudden and forceful enough to steal his breath. Changho stilled instantly, his hand pressing flat against his sternum, as if that would steady the sensation. It didn't. The connection surged again, stronger this time, carrying something with it that he hadn't felt before. Not fear. Not panic. Resistance. She was fighting. Kazryn was already there, fully present, no distance left between them. She's in danger. The certainty in his wolf's voice matched the pull in his chest. Changho didn't question it. He didn't need to. The bond made it clear in a way nothing else could. His focus sharpened immediately, every other thought falling away as the connection tightened again, pulling his awareness outward. Where is she? Not far, Kazryn replied. They're moving. That was enough. Changho moved without hesitation, crossing the room and pulling the door open in one continuous motion. The controlled quiet of the pack house shifted the moment he stepped back into it. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. The change in his presence was immediate and unmistakable. Jisoo noticed first. Han followed a second later. Neither of them spoke. Changho stopped in front of them, his expression steady, his voice even. They took her. The words landed without shock. Both of them understood what it meant the moment he said it. Han's posture straightened, his attention locking in. How long? Just now. Jisoo's gaze sharpened. They moved faster than expected. They were waiting, Changho replied. Saying it out loud only confirmed what he already knew. This hadn't been opportunistic. It had been planned. Han was already thinking ahead. We can track from her last known location and... Changho shook his head once. I don't need a trail. That stopped them. Kazryn pushed forward again, the connection between them no longer something Changho resisted. It guided him now, clear and undeniable. I can feel her. Jisu's expression shifted, not in disbelief, but in understanding. The bond. Changho didn't confirm it. He didn't need to. Han's jaw tightened slightly. Then we move now. Yes. There was no hesitation left in the room. No delay. The shift was immediate as both of them turned to act, already moving before Changho gave the next order. Lock down the perimeter, Changho said as he started toward the exit. No one in or out without clearance. Done, Jisu replied, already pulling her phone. Pull everyone in, he continued. Han nodded once. They're on the way. Changho didn't slow as he stepped outside. The air felt colder against his skin, sharpening his focus even further. The bond pulled again, giving him direction, not exact, but enough to move without second-guessing. They're heading away from the main roads, Kazryn said, trying to stay unseen. Changho's gaze fixed ahead, already calculating distance, timing, interception points. They won't get far. Kazryn's response carried something darker this time. They think they have time. Changho's expression didn't change, but the decision behind it settled completely. They don't. He moved forward without hesitation, the last traces of restraint falling away as purpose replaced it. This was no longer about managing a situation or keeping control of a variable he didn't want. This was retrieval. They had taken something that belonged under his protection. That alone sealed their mistake. They have no idea what they just started, Kazryn said. Changho's voice was quieter when he answered, but there was nothing uncertain in it. No, he said. They don't. Changho moved with controlled speed, his focus locked forward as the pull in his chest guided him through the outskirts of the city and into the wooded stretch beyond it. The connection was no longer subtle. It had weight now. Direction. And a growing urgency that made every second matter. Kazryn stayed present, fully aligned with him, tracking the same pull with sharpened instinct. They're slowing down, he said. They think they've put enough distance between us. They haven't, Changho replied. The pack followed in formation behind him, silent and precise. Jisu held the left flank, Han the right, the rest spreading out just enough to maintain coverage without losing cohesion. No one asked questions. They didn't need to. The shift in Changho's presence had already told them everything. The scent reached him before the clearing did. It cut through the air, unfamiliar and aggressive, layered with the faint trace of something chemical that didn't belong in a natural environment. They're close, Kazryn said. Changho slowed slightly as the trees opened into a wide clearing. The terrain had been chosen carefully. It was open enough to control movement, but shielded enough to avoid attention. Temporary but intentional. They were waiting. Changho raised his hand, and the pack stopped behind him immediately. Jisu moved into position beside him. Han adjusted to the right, scanning the perimeter with sharp focus. There were at least a dozen of them, spread across the clearing in loose formation. They weren't as disciplined as his pack, but they weren't careless either. They were watching, anticipating. At the far end, two of them stood closer together, angled in a way that made their purpose clear. Amara was behind them. The bond tightened in his chest the moment his eyes landed on her. She was upright, but her posture was off, like her balance hadn't fully returned. Whatever they had used on her was still affecting her movement. She's there, Kazryn said, already shifting forward. Changho didn't hesitate. Move. The command carried cleanly, and the pack surged forward in perfect coordination. The first attacker came fast, trying to meet them head-on, but Jisu intercepted him before he made contact with the center. She redirected his momentum and drove him to the ground in one controlled motion. Han moved just as quickly on the opposite side, cutting off two more before they could flank. Changho didn't slow. He went straight through the center, closing distance with direct intent. Another wolf lunged at him, but the movement was rushed. Changho adjusted without breaking stride, absorbing the impact and forcing the wolf off balance before taking him down completely. He moved on immediately, already tracking the next threat. The fight escalated quickly. More of them moved in at once, trying to overwhelm through numbers, but their coordination broke under pressure. Changho's pack didn't react, they adapted. They held formation, covered each other, and controlled the space with practiced precision. Still, it wasn't clean. A sharp impact sounded behind him as one of the younger wolves went down under a heavier opponent. Changho registered it without turning, already knowing the cost. The loss tightened something in his chest, but it didn't slow him. "Hold the line," Han called, shifting position to close the gap. "They're losing structure," Kazryn said. Changho saw it. Their movements had turned reactive, less controlled, easier to predict. "Take two alive," Changho ordered. "The rest end here." The pack adjusted immediately. Jisoo changed her approach, forcing one opponent into submission rather than finishing him. Han did the same, disabling another with controlled force. Around them, the rest of the clearing tightened as resistance collapsed. The fight ended as quickly as it had begun. Silence followed, broken only by steady breathing and the movement of his pack securing the area. Changho shifted back without pause, his attention already on her. He crossed the clearing, closing the distance with measured steps. Up close, he could see the strain in her posture more clearly now. She was still standing, but not steady. Her focus sharpened as he approached, locking onto him the moment he stepped into her space. "You took your time," she said, her voice quieter than usual but steady. "I got here," he replied. He stopped in front of her, close enough to confirm what the bond had already told him. She wasn't seriously injured, but whatever they had used had slowed her down enough to make her vulnerable. She shifted slightly, and her balance gave just enough to make the movement unstable. Changho reached out instinctively, his hand settling at her waist to steady her before she could fall. The contact was brief, controlled, but it carried weight. Amara inhaled sharply, her hand tightening lightly against his arm as she steadied herself. Her eyes lifted to his, searching. "You felt that," she said. Changho held her gaze, but he didn't answer. He didn't need to. He released her, but the awareness between them didn't fade. Behind him, Han's voice cut through the moment. "We've got two secured." Changho stepped back slightly, his focus shifting back to the situation without fully leaving her. "Keep them alive," he said. "We'll get what we need from them." The pack moved immediately, securing the prisoners and reinforcing the perimeter. Changho looked at her once more, his expression steady but no longer distant. The situation had changed. So had he, and she knew it.